Thank you all. My name is attorney Bobby DiCello. For the media who's gathered, B-O-B-B-Y-D-I capital C-E-L-L-O, like the instrument DiCello is how you pronounce it. With me today is also attorney William Most, that's M-O-S-T, as well as the family of, or the parents of Calvin Cains. We have Mallory Woodfork with us here on my right, and we have Mr. Cains on my left. We understand that Mr. Cains is here, although he has his own counsel, but we were happy to have him present to be present for his son and stand with us with his son. For those of you who are keeping score of who's speaking and when, the first person to speak will be Marquel Bridges. He is with Black Lives Matter here locally. And Marquel, how do you spell it?
M-A-R-Q-U-E-L-L-B-R-I-D-G-E-S.
So Marquel was here with us, and then we're going to have William speak after him. After William speaks, I will speak, and then after that, we'll have Ms. Cains speak, or Ms. Woodfork speak, the mother. Okay, thank you so much. So we begin today in honor of a young life that was taken under very, very curious circumstances. It's going to be important that as you hear everyone speak, we all focus in on the importance of the lives of every single resident of Jefferson Parish. That's why we're here. Having said that, Marquel.
Thank you, Brother Bud. Marquel Bridges, Building Bridges for Community Unity in Progress, Black Lives Matter Grassroots, Rapid Response Team, along with my brother Andrew Joseph. This community is hurting. These families are hurting. We look at DeVar Robinson, we look at Glenn Foster Jr., and all of these cases around New Orleans, Ronald Green, the same scenario. Calvin Cains did nothing wrong. You know, the pain that this family feels, the constant hurt and grief that they feel is not addressed by our people, and they just need the community. They need the community to support them, to love on them, to help them, and just create a movement around Calvin Cains Jr. Thank you.
William Most.
Thank you. My name is William Most. I'm a local civil rights attorney. I'm part of the legal team here. And what we've seen with Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office is a lack of meaningful accountability. We have seen death after death after death in the custody of the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office without any internal investigations, paired with the destruction of documents relevant to those cases. And so that's why it's so important that community members like the ones on this stage stand up and push back on government that will not listen to them and will not meaningfully hold themselves to account. Thank you.
This is not a day that we take lightly. I've come here to New Orleans and I have been astonished about what I've heard. You have a sheriff who is committed to hiding what the police are doing, keeping it locked in the shadows, allowing the backgrounds of officers to be cleansed of the discipline they have. He has a retention policy that only allows the good things to stay in the record. You can't know. If you ask publicly, you can't know who your officers are or who the deputies are, who they really are at the sheriff's office. He's also the tax collector. So let's see. The man who collects the money also carries the guns. And he keeps the people in line. And he hides the circumstances of Calvin's death. We've asked for the video. Where is the video that shows that this young life could have lawfully been taken? What we know is that my client was in a car, and he didn't even get the car out of a parallel parking spot. And they say he drove at or threatened the life of an officer. That does not make sense. None of this makes sense. This community must wake up. It is not okay. We need to have a new conversation. We need to allow for ordinary people like the Cains family to know how their loved one died. That should be a basic right here in this community. If your loved one, if it's your loved one and they're taken by a bullet, you should be able to know why. You should be able to have a conversation. And believe me, we didn't file a lawsuit, or we are not filing our lawsuit today because of a conversation. We're filing it because none of this makes sense. The lawsuit will be filed after our remarks, and the reason for that is we're not trying to color a potential jury either. We're not going to talk about, and no one will be interviewed about the specific allegations in that lawsuit. They will speak for themselves. But I can smell and I can feel the apathy in your community. And I want you to remember Calvin's name as a name that will continue to resonate until we get some meaningful change here in Jefferson. This will not end with a lawsuit one way or the other. We have to get rid of qualified immunity. We have to stop shielding police officers from what would ordinarily be for any of us murderous crime. We have to have real accountability. We have to have transparency. And we have to celebrate the dignity of these parents and their child. Each one of us, and it could be your family member, it could be you, has a life that matters. And it's time that this community, in honor of Calvin, does something about it. Thank you.
Calvin Cains.
Say his name.
Calvin Cains.
Say his name.
Calvin Cains.
Say his name.
Calvin Cains.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from his mother, Mallory.
Good afternoon, everybody. I actually had to write what I wanted to say down. Good afternoon. My name is Mallory Woodfork, and I'm here today as a grieving mother seeking justice for my beloved son, Calvin Cains III. It has been a year since his life was tragically and senseless taken by Jefferson Parish Sheriff office. Calvin was not a fugitive. He was not a threat to society. He was a young man with his entire future ahead of him. Yet on the fateful day, his life was abruptly ended without warning of justification. As a mother who witnessed this horrible act firsthand, I am haunted by the memories of how the officers took my child's life without identifying themselves or offering any explanation. Jefferson Parish has a distressing history of misconduct and the unjust killing of black and brown men. My son, that is a painful reminder of this ongoing issue. For the past year, I've been pleading for justice, for answers, and for accountability. I have repeatedly requested the body cam footage of that day, but my pleas has gone unanswered. Today, I stand here before you demanding transparency and justice of Calvin Cains III. I want to understand why my child was deemed a threat. Why wasn't given the chance to be apprehended safely. Why it was illegal use of force used against him. To Jefferson Parish Sheriff Office, I have questions and I deserve answers. My son's lives matter. His death cannot be brushed to the side or forgotten. I am calling on all the authorities to release the body cam immediately and to conduct a tough and transparent investigation into his death. I will not rest until justice is served for Calvin Cains III. His life was precious and his story deserves to be heard. I ask for support in seeking the truth, ensuring that no other mother would endure the pain and loss that I have faced. Thank you.
We're going to invite Mr. Cains just to say a word or two for his son.
How y'all doing? I'm Calvin Cains Jr. My son, Calvin Cains III. June 6th was a real bad day when I got the phone call that my son's life was taken. I thought Jefferson Parish was a place that protect and serve, not to kill and harm. And for them to kill him with no justification, I'm really hurt. June 6th, the last day, my life was over. My only child. I miss my son calling me dad. I'm hurt from that. And I want justice from the officer, and I want justice for Jefferson Parish Sheriff Office for killing my son for no apparent reason. Thursday gonna make a year that I ain't talked to my son. I ain't seen him. And it's painful. Then they killed him a week before his birthday. His life was cut short, too short. Man, because at 19, I knew what I was doing. And I'm 41, and for my son's life to be taken at 19, he didn't experience life at all. So I hope justice will be served on behalf of Calvin Cains III. So can y'all please say his name out loud? Calvin Cains III.
Calvin Cains III. Calvin Cains III. Calvin Cains III.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. So the question was, how do we say that there was no justification given the fact that the sheriff's office has said that there was a car used that put officers in, I think, threat of death or something? Thank you for the question. It's very simple. If you have something that shows that Calvin did what you said, I'm telling Sheriff Lopinto this, show us the video. How hard could that be? I mean, if you have a case, a clear case of Calvin Cains III being a threat, you would imagine they would lead with that. I would imagine they would have released that to you, the media, and would have given all of us an opportunity to understand that. But here's the second thing, though. In addition to hiding the video, what gives us concern is Calvin's car is never moved from the actual parallel parking spot. His car was not at an angle. His car was not pointing at an officer. His car was not pointing in the direction of officers who responded. And by the way, they responded undercover. So they didn't show up with uniforms and badges and then yell at him and say, stop, and he jumped into a car and fled or tried to. That's not what happened. According to what we've been able to do through our investigation, we've been able to establish he never left a parallel parking spot. So it raises a ton of questions, in addition to the fact that there's no damage visible from what we could see on the front or back of the car. Well, all we can see are bullet holes where he was sitting in the windshield on the driver's side. Yeah. Right, so the question was, how do we feel, or how does it settle with us that they haven't released the video and we're a year out when they have released the video in other cases? Remember, Sheriff Lipinto's a lawyer. So am I. On June 6th, if this lawsuit isn't filed by then, this family has no recourse. So why would you hide a video for a year? Maybe you don't want them to have a case, right? It's very simple. It's an old strategy. We cannot claim or we cannot blame for things we don't know, so they try to keep it in the dark. And so it does not settle well with us that this video has been hidden from view. And it indicates to us from prior experience in other circumstances across the country that they're hiding, for sure. Yes? Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yes? Thank you.
I have twofold question. One is, would you sue to obtain that body camera footage? And two is, will you talk a little bit about Calvin's future, who he was as a person, what's lost?
So there was legal action taken immediately after Calvin's death to try to get the video, and there were legal debates around that. The basic issue is when the video is claimed to be part of an investigation, say those who don't want to disclose it, it cannot or should not be disclosed. And so they're hiding behind this claim of investigation when we know from the good work of William Most, my colleague up here. William, step over here, please. William has done more for this community in fighting for public records laws change than any other lawyer I know. And William has actually notified the sheriff in writing of these unbelievably manipulative rules they have about destroying the bad records of the police of the sheriff's deputies that are working for the sheriff, about keeping only the good records, and also notifying the sheriff and urging the sheriff to make changes to the disclosures. So that's a lot to say that, you know, with William's work in the community locally, a man who, by the way, has had success in litigation against this Jefferson Sheriff's Office, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office knows what it's doing, and it's keeping this information from the community. And in this case, I can tell you a little bit about Calvin. In a community that lets young black men graduate from high school but get no jobs, in a community that lets young men announce themselves to the world as young men, but give them an unequal piece of the community pie. Calvin was doing what I would have done. And look at me. I'm going to say that again. He would have done what I was doing at that age. He was dating. He had plans. He had dreams of owning a business with his mother. They were going to be selling hair together. He was a young, look at how handsome he is. This kid he could have been anybody. And when we take a snapshot of a young life at the age of 19, as his father pointed out, 18, 19 years of age, a young man, think of who you were then. Think of what you were doing then and how your life has changed and how much opportunity was taken from him to become the man he should have been and could have been. It was all taken. He loved his mother. He liked cereal. He liked milk with cereal, this terrible guy. He loved his girlfriend. He loved his family. He had a divided household where mom and dad didn't get along so good, but you know what? He tried to stay in touch with both of them. Sounds like everybody we know. Anybody know a guy who likes cereal and likes to date girls and like his parents even though they're not getting along? This is who our client is. This is who he is. They just try to paint him as some kind of felon who they were trying to serve a warrant upon, and they didn't announce themselves? A no-knock warrant, a no-knock, no-announce scenario is a dangerous scenario. We know this across the country in case after case after case. So that's who he was. He was a young man with a beautiful life ahead of him that was now going to be subject to the definitions and terms that I can give you right now in this press conference, and it's not fair. Yes.
I have two questions. Condolences to the family. Number one, have you all had any correspondence with the sheriff's office? And if so, how has that gone? And number two, were there any witnesses or anyone that has come forward that witnessed this, or any camera footage from the apartment complex at all?
Right, so if you were to ask the New Orleans Saints head coach what kind of plays you're going to run on Sunday, he'd never tell you. So I can't tell you what we've got in terms of our investigation. But I can tell you that the community has been cooperative in telling the full story of this case, okay? The second thing I want to say is I want to have William speak a little bit about his efforts to communicate with the sheriff's office. What you're going to hear, I've never seen in my entire career, I've been doing this for 27 years, I've never heard of what you're about to hear. Go ahead, Sheriff.
This is not the first time the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office has been sued for killing a teenager. It's happened before. And what we've learned through those lawsuits is relevant here. What we've learned is that the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office illegally destroys the disciplinary records of its officers. That means the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office does not keep a record of what their officers do over time. They're not allowed to destroy those records. State law says they have to be preserved unless certain criteria are met. The Sheriff's Office keeps destroying them. The Sheriff's Office has destroyed documents even after a judge said to save them. Also, even when the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office kills someone, they don't do an internal affairs investigation. It is astonishing. It is a basic element of good policing that when your officers kill someone, you do an internal affairs investigation. Because otherwise, how can you learn? How can you get better? How can you communicate to officers what is and isn't acceptable? But what we know is that over 5 years, 19 people died in the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office custody. Not one of them got an internal affairs investigation. And so while what happened to Calvin Cains is tragic, it shouldn't be surprising in the sense that this sheriff has resisted any form of meaningful accountability for himself or his officers. Until things change, it will continue.
Thank you. Great answer. Anybody else? Okay, all right. Yes.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Initially, JPSO had said that the reason why they tracked Calvin down was because he allegedly had gotten into a stolen vehicle. What do you have to say about that allegation? And then let's say that allegation is true. Does the punishment fit the crime, and the punishment as in a fatal shooting?
Right.
Second question, I know this is about the civil lawsuit, but are you all still hoping for a criminal lawsuit?
So, as to the first question, wouldn't it be nice if Calvin had a chance to defend himself in court today? Right? By the way, everyone watching this, everyone here in this room, and there's a great crowd here, we appreciate you all, has a constitutional right to face their accuser. His was taken. Everyone has a right to call witnesses on their behalf. His right was taken. Everyone has a right to waive their rights in that regard. They waived his rights for him. They took his life. And every time I stand in front of a podium, and I've been doing this for a while, I hear the same law enforcement cover-up nonsense. And it sounds like this: he was a really bad guy. But he was a person, a human being, a young man. Have we lost our minds? Those who make mistakes are entitled to process, not death, so no, it doesn't fit the crime. There's no conversation to have, a real conversation to have about whether he deserved what happened to him. If Calvin was making a mistake that was violating the law, as every single driver in this room knows, the speed limit is the speed limit, but you don't lose your life for it if you violate it, right? How many of us have gotten a DUI? How many of us have gotten ourselves in trouble? We've made mistakes and we've had to pay the cost. He paid the ultimate price and his mother is carrying the bag for it because they took his life. His father is trying to figure out how to deal with this. These are the people. He's at peace. So I get very angry when I hear these attacks on the people that I love. These are not clients to me, ladies and gentlemen. These are people in your community, and I want you to please hear this right now. This is your case. This is not my case. I will do my work, and this family will live here, and we will continue to support them. You have our word. Marquel knows that. We will continue to be here long after the case is here, but your children will walk these streets. Your families will need these changes. Your children's children will ask for a law enforcement agency that is transparent and that is dignified.
Next question.
It's not a question, it's a statement. I see Attorney Michelle Charles is up there. I
Yes,
want
yes.
to just highlight that she's been doing this work for a number of years to protect the citizens of Jefferson Parish from the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. I also want to make you guys aware of a ProPublica investigation that happened that I was also a part of that highlighted the use of force against particularly black men in Jefferson Parish.
Yes.
We have Modesto Reyes, we have Kevin Robinson, we have Chris and Davari. Chris and Davari were two black men in a car, similar to Calvin Cains, where the police said that the car was coming in their direction and they had to shoot. I want you to understand that Calvin Cains III is the face of an issue that has been going on for a number of years in Jefferson Parish.
Thank you.
And Joseph Lapinto acts with impunity in our community. And it's only black men. And when we fought for the body cameras to be installed in Jefferson Parish, the very first case came against a black police officer.
That's right.
That they had no problem releasing footage for.
See?
So they release it when it's convenient.
That's right.
And what I want to tell you is until the citizens as a whole hold Joseph Lapinto accountable by not re-electing him, this is going to continue because he does not think he has to answer to anybody. But who he has to answer to is the voters. And as a citizen of Jefferson Parish and as a person who has stood firmly against the over-policing of black bodies in Jefferson Parish, Calvin Cains, sadly, is not an anomaly. This is happening over and over and over. Kevin Robinson's murder was deemed a murder, and the person who killed him was allowed to go to the Louisiana State Police and get a job.
Yeah.
No investigation.
Thank you for that. That's such a great thing. And I want to thank you. Round of applause. That was a beautiful, beautiful presentation. We have Ms. Charles here. Come on up here. We met this morning, didn't we?
We did.
And so we have not forgotten nor ignored this beautiful talent that's here with me, this wonderful talent who has been quietly working as a public defender and in that space has been aware of many, many terrible circumstances. And I didn't put you in initially because you just weren't here. So let's have you come on up and say a few words, please. And then you're going to.
Thank you. Jefferson Parish has been ruled by tyrants for many, many years, starting with Harry Lee, Newell Norman, and now Joseph Lapinto. They are all cut from the same cloth. And just as Dr. Shantawai spoke, if we, as the citizens, don't stand up and speak truth to power, we will never get the justice we deserve. Calvin Cains was one of 11 police-related shootings in Jefferson Parish last year alone. The names, the list goes on and on and on. Enough is enough. We're sick of talking. It's time for us to rally together and stop living in this dictatorship. We are being ruled by someone who believes that they are untouchable. What are we being ruled by? The mob? We need protection in Jefferson Parish against these lawless police officers that continue to brutalize the black and brown community in Jefferson Parish. How many more names do we have to put on a list before we say something? Thank y'all.
We have another guest that's surprised me to be here. So happy to see Sabrina Foster. Right, not too far from here, there's a place where Sabrina's son used to work. You guys take a guess where that was? It was the football stadium down the street. Her son was an NFL football player that we represent. And Glenn Foster was a heck of a guy. And he's got an amazing mom who I want you to hear from. She's another one of our impacted families that we keep in touch with. Sabrina has been with us. Come up here, Sabrina. She's been with us through many of these stories. We were just together in Ohio not too long ago.
About a couple of weeks ago.
And she is a gift, and she's here to give some of her thoughts and insights into what this crazy situation means.
It's like a puzzle. You just cannot solve this one. It's unfortunate that I'm here to help support Ms. Cain. Calvin should be here. My son still should be here. And due to the senseless cause of my son's death, the same as Kevin, by the police, I can't say what we should do because this has been going on since slavery, since we've been here. So this is an unsolved mystery that we need to solve quickly. Because if it's not going to be solved quickly, it's going to continue to happen. My son was Glenn Foster Jr. He was a father. He was a wonderful son. He was my only son. He was just awesome. He played for the New Orleans Saints, 2013 through 2015. And then he and his wife became a business partner. They own a granite company called Southern LA Granite, and it's located in Baton Rouge and here in New Orleans, 2105 Magazine Street. I'm saying that to say that he was not just your average person that we think are those who are murdered. My son was traveling on business, going to Atlanta by car, and they pulled him over in Alabama for a speeding violation. And who would have thought that a speeding violation would be a death sentence for someone who does not fit the script that we are also accustomed to thinking that only the bad-looking guys are those who are murdered or wrongfully brutalized or whatever the case may be. I said that to say this. It could happen to any one of us, okay? And it has happened to any one of us. My son left behind a beautiful wife, 4 daughters. The youngest was only 1. Now their ages are to be this year 4, 7, 10, and 13 without a father. And he was a productive, good father. And so I miss my only son. I can imagine Ms. Cain missing her son. Anyone. It's not like my son was sick. You know how you have a loved one that's sick and you can prepare for their death, you know? You can mourn before their death. It's a different feeling when a person is just taken away from you wrongfully by someone who is supposed to protect us. So I'm here to support, and I hope that we continue to help fight for justice, because this is not just our fight. This fight is all of our fight, not just people of color. So God bless us all while we do the fighting. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
We have another question.
Good morning.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand where you'll be filing. Mallory, I know that you had filed something in Jefferson, and I don't know what the status of that is. If you'll be filing in federal court or Jefferson?
We'll be filing in federal court, and the documents you're talking about were those public records attempts, the debates over those public records attempts, trying to get the sheriff to produce the public records,
So
the
this
video.
filing will only be in federal court?
This will be a federal court filing, that's correct. And a copy of that complaint will be available online once it's filed, so.
Another question.
Yes.
That's really a comment. I think the larger issue is understanding that black men are enemies of the state. They're seen as enemy combatants by the police. We don't understand the true nature and the role of the police within the system such as this. We've been socially engineered into all of these utopian fantasies. This is a book called We Charge Genocide. It's documented since Reconstruction. The same scenario over and over and over and over again. And the elders had put this book together back in the 60s, and they were trying to go to the UN and charge the government with crimes against humanity, against black people, in a larger perspective, against black and brown people. So we add Calvin Cains' name to this list. And if you read they have the actual dates and times of these black men who were brutally murdered by the police and extensions of the police, which is the Ku Klux Klan and things of that sort. But we see it on a larger perspective than what we are usually told about black men are being murdered. This is war against black men. The state sees it that way. We talk about the white ruling class who have to keep constantly perpetuating themselves to stay in the position that they're in. But we're sitting on the powder keg, so we always say black power and all power to the people.
Thank you, sir. And you see, thank you. You see, this is exactly what we're talking about. Notice how passionate he is. He's got his identity. He's got his book. He's saying something that matters. Don't discount it, right? There is a perception that this society is at war with itself in some important spots. Please don't let that perception linger. Yeah. Yes.
Could yourself or Attorney Mose speak to how exactly you feel that this should have been handled, just for the record, legally, this situation? And then also, are you asking anything from the community during this presser?
So how it should have been handled? Well, what would it have cost Jefferson Parish to lower a flag, to have a meeting, to share a video, to talk? Have we come to a point in our society, in our homes, not the great system that we talk about, but in your own neighborhood, have we come to a place where we just can't even say words to each other? Just words like, here's the video, please watch it, I'm sorry for your loss. We don't have to rewrite the Constitution. This is not hard. But we should follow the Constitution. So what else should have happened is he should still be here. The other thing that should have happened is that the community should have woken up before this day. And I don't like saying that because I'm part of that community. I'm a neighbor from a different state. I don't live in this town, but I am an American. And each one of us is asleep. If you think going home and having a bag of chips and watching a game is the end of this story for all of us, I rest assuredly tell you this could happen to you or one you love. Things will get worse. It takes work. Apathy is never a solution. Just shrugging your shoulders is never a solution. And that should have happened. And so now we're here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make clear what this disagreement really is about. We did not ask for this fight. This was brought to Calvin and his parents. But now that we're here and when the invitation has been made, we're going to file the documents, we're going to follow the rules, and we're going to ask for, and we are now asking for, a conversation about what really happened. Show us the video. Show us the video. Show us the video. That's it. As it relates to your last question, your last point, it's awkward to be a white face in this conversation. You heard what the man said. People who look like me in this part of town were not friendly to African Americans for centuries. And I'm proud of the fact that this is about not skin, but kin. This is about Americans standing up for something, all of us. Standing up for a better way of living, all of us. This is not a black problem. This is not a brown problem. My children are brown. My wife is not white. That doesn't mean I've got a card to be here. It means that I have a perspective. And as a white lawyer, I'm proud of that perspective. So the other thing that should be happening is that white faces should be with us more. William Most and the others of us should be here more often. These cases need all of us. All of us. Thank you. All right. That's the press conference for now. As it relates to any private interviews that you would want of the family, you'll have to talk to us first. You'll see right over there in the corner, her right there with her hand up. Stand up, please, real quick, Jen. That's Jen Bankston. She's the media director for this event, and she'll be the one that you can coordinate those interviews with. Thank you. Calvin Cains! Calvin Cains! Calvin Cains! Our house! Our house! Our house! Our house! We got the power! We got the power! We got the power! Power! Big down! Power! Big down! Hoo hoo!